This is not just another headline. This is not just another court ruling. This is a moment that could reshape American gun policy for an entire generation. In a decision that is already sending shockwaves across the country, the Supreme Court of the United States has stepped directly into one of the most explosive debates in modern America: magazine capacity limits. Supporters are calling it a long overdue move to protect public safety. Critics are calling it a dangerous erosion of constitutional rights. And right now, millions of Americans are asking the same question: what does this ruling really mean for me? Tonight, we break it all down, calmly, clearly, and without political noise. For years, the debate over firearms in America has followed a familiar pattern. Tragedy strikes, emotions surge, lawmakers argue, courts intervene, then the cycle repeats. But this time feels different. This time, the Supreme Court's involvement isn't about a single state law or a narrow technicality. It's about magazine capacity itself, the number of rounds a firearm magazine can legally hold. At the center of this decision is a simple but powerful question: where does public safety end and constitutional protection begin? The court's answer could redefine that line. Let's strip away the legal language and talk plainly. A magazine ban does not ban guns. It does not confiscate firearms. Instead, it limits how many rounds a magazine can hold, often setting the maximum at 10 rounds. Supporters argue this reduces the potential damage in mass casualty situations. Opponents argue it weakens lawful self-defense and sets a precedent for deeper restrictions. Until now, these bans existed mostly at the state level, creating a patchwork of rules across the country. The Supreme Court decision brings this issue onto the national legal stage. Contrary to viral headlines, the court did not issue a blanket gun ban. What it did was uphold the constitutionality of magazine capacity limits under federal law. In its reasoning, the court focused on 3 key points. First, magazine limits do not eliminate access to firearms. Second, similar regulations have existed historically. Third, the government has a legitimate interest in reducing mass casualty potential. This distinction is crucial. The ruling does not force every state to immediately confiscate magazines, but it does give lawmakers stronger legal footing to enforce or expand limits. And that's where the real impact begins. According to the majority opinion, constitutional rights are not unlimited. The court argued that just as free speech has limits, firearm regulations can exist without violating the Constitution, as long as they do not destroy the core right of self-defense. In the court's view, a 10-round magazine still allows a person to defend themselves effectively. They emphasize that the Second Amendment protects ownership, not unlimited capacity. This reasoning will likely shape firearm law debates for years to come. But the decision was far from unanimous. Dissenting justices warned that the ruling could open the door to broader restrictions, not just on magazines, but potentially on other firearm components. They argued that common use should matter, and that millions of Americans legally own higher capacity magazines. Their concern is not just about this ruling, but about what comes next. Once the line moves, they argue, it rarely moves back. This is the most important section, because this is where confusion spreads fastest. Here's the reality. If you already own higher capacity magazines, grandfather clauses may apply depending on your state. In some areas, ownership remains legal, sale and transfer become illegal, new purchases are restricted, in others, enforcement may be delayed. Lawsuits may pause implementation. The key takeaway is this: state law still matters, but federal backing just got stronger. Gun owners should stay informed, not panicked. Before this decision, magazine bans were constantly challenged in lower courts. Now, the Supreme Court has sent a clear signal. These laws can survive constitutional scrutiny. That doesn't end legal battles, but it raises the bar for challengers. Future cases will likely focus on enforcement fairness, grandfathering rules, equal application across states. This ruling becomes a reference point, a legal anchor. Within hours of the decision, reactions flooded in. Gun control advocates hailed the ruling as a victory for safety. Gun rights groups condemned it as judicial overreach. Lawmakers immediately began drafting bills. Advocacy groups announced new lawsuits. Fundraising emails exploded across inboxes. This ruling doesn't end the debate, it supercharges it. Beyond laws and courts, this debate is deeply human. Parents worry about school safety, homeowners worry about self-defense, communities worry about violence. Both sides believe they are protecting life. And that's why this issue refuses to fade away. The court didn't just rule on magazines, it ruled on how America balances fear, freedom, and responsibility. Can police confiscate magazines immediately? Not automatically. Enforcement depends on state implementation. Is this the end of the Second Amendment? No. Firearm ownership remains protected. Will this lead to more bans? Possibly. But each would face its own legal challenges. Is this decision permanent? Supreme Court rulings can be revisited, but rarely quickly. Expect 3 things. 1. Legal challenges in lower courts. A 2. Legislative action at state and federal levels. 3. Political messaging leading into elections. This issue will not cool down. It will dominate headlines. Even if you don't own a firearm, even if you hate politics, even if you avoid the news, this decision affects how constitutional rights are interpreted. And that affects everyone. Today it's magazines. Tomorrow it could be something else. The precedent matters. The Supreme Court does not move lightly. When it does, the effects ripple for decades. This ruling will be studied in law schools, debated in legislatures, and argued at dinner tables. It is not the end of the gun debate. It is a turning point. And how America responds, calmly or chaotically, will define the next chapter. If you found this breakdown helpful, subscribe for clear, calm explanations without fear bait or noise. And now we want to hear from you. Do you believe magazine limits improve safety or weaken rights? The conversation continues below.